Krakow, with its 760,000 inhabitants, is a lively city and Poland's #1 tourist destination. Despite growing car ownership, Krakow still has a very sustainable modal split, with approximately 60% of all journeys being made by cycling, walking and public transport. The last version of local transport policy, from 2016 to 2025, developed according to SUMP principles, includes 4 main strategies concerning parking policy, among many others supporting sustainable development of the transport system. These are enlarging the paid parking zones on street, creation of multi-level off-street garages to reduce demand for on-street parking in the area, actions to manage and limit parking on streets and on pavements, development of parking networks consisting of park and ride and bike and ride, especially connected to tram and train networks in the vicinity of the 3rd and 4th ring roads. A good example of the last strategy is Bieżanu Park and Ride and Bike and Ride Station. The main target group is commuters from the nearby municipality of Wieliczka, who can park here and switch to public transport. The conversion of parking spaces into bicycle parking facilities is another example of a measure to reduce the dominance of the private car. Taking public space from the car and giving it back to people is something that has been implemented recently at Narcieszcza Street. Before, pedestrians were forced to cross the street via an underpass so as not to delay traffic. Now a safe surface crossing has been provided. Additionally, 1 lane for cars has been converted to space for pedestrians to avoid crowded public transport stops. Removal of private vehicle traffic in one direction on part of the first ring road is an example of another measure that no longer prioritizes car use. Private vehicles have to make a detour, whilst the street remains fully open to cyclists, pedestrians and public transport. To reduce on-street parking, Krakow is building parking garages near the city centre, like here at Stara Podgórze. Up to 2,000 spaces on street have been or will be removed as one element of the updated parking programme. The city centre itself is divided into 3 zones. The A zone, which is car restricted and only accessible for pedestrians and cyclists. The B zone, with restricted traffic accessible for inhabitants and deliveries, and the P zones with paid parking on street. A major step was removing parked cars from Mały Rynek Square. Now it's used as a public space and from time to time for public events and exhibitions. Parking space management and paid parking has existed in Krakow since the late 1980s. Currently, the paid parking zone in Krakow includes 29,000 parking spaces, and in the strategy it is planned to expand the parking zone over time. For many years it has not been possible to increase parking prices beyond 70 cents per hour, as this level was set by national law. But this changed recently in the areas of paid parking. Revenues from paid parking can be used for transport, as they count as municipal income. Following the principle of the push and pull project, a percentage of the income from the paid parking zone is earmarked in the new city budgets as funding for sustainable mobility modes. This is currently set at 20%, but will soon rise to 65% of the net income. It covers mainly promotional activities, but also infrastructure and equipment. One of these promotional activities is the campaign Cycle May, in schools where children and parents are encouraged to come to school by active modes. Developments in transport in Krakow over the past 10 to 15 years show significant achievements, moving from a car-oriented to a more people-focused transport policy. So much so that Krakow can act as a good example for cities of its kind in Central and Eastern Europe.